Hello everyone, it's Saturn, and today I'm playing Kyle is Famous.
Kyle woke up.
Skip, exit the bed. I I'm going to
Kyle quickly crouched
scavenge.
down on the floor, realizing his immediate need for... Kyle firmly
Rustling.
pressed his ear into the carpet, hoping to hear some stray words from the neighbors below. I heard Rachel May is going on a trip out of the country soon. Oh, girlfriend, tell me more! Well, what I will tell you is that every night I don a mask that looks like a bug and fight misdoers. There was a stunned silence. Then a door opened, and someone exited the neighbor's apartment.
Okay. Rusty
Kyle
lumber.
knelt down and inspected the old, rusty container that had been in his closet for ages. It was locked, but had a blade-shaped slot in the top.
I
Kyle
do.
decided to take some time to choose the perfect outfit, knowing how important appearance is. Kyle miraculously crammed his dumpy body.
Okay. I'm going to eat.
Kyle opened the fridge, intending to find something to eat. Kyle started to grab
Condiments.
condiments from the fridge, squirting them into his mouth with both hands. Ketchup, horseradish, and mayonnaise entered Kyle's mouth at a rate that soon overwhelmed his ability to swallow. Kyle spewed the excess condiment slurry across the kitchen, covering the furniture and walls. Kyle continued until all of the condiments had been emptied.
Check
Kyle
pantry. Okay, return to hallway.
Kyle walked over to the strange door in the hallway, but found quickly that the door was locked from the inside.
And I force the
Kyle
door
decided it
open.
would be best to try to force the door open with use of his face. After smashing his features into solid wood for several minutes, Kyle gained severe short-term amnesia.
Damn. I guess I'll leave.
Kyle hurried to the set. Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an air of genuinity. As Kyle approached her, Rachel looked up and smiled. Good evening, Kyle, she said, looking him in the eyes. I've been looking forward to being here. Kyle responded.
Get her name.
Hello. You. Kyle's ears began to ring from his concussion. Rachel looked at Kyle, slightly confused, but continued smiling. Before she noticed the glazed look in Kyle's eyes, the producer approached. Time to get started, he said, putting a hand on Kyle's shoulder. Let's get stationed. Kyle sat in the nearest chair, which was Rachel's. After a moment, Rachel hesitantly sat in the host chair. A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on. Good morning, everyone, said Kyle. My name is... Kyle made a desperate effort to remember his name, or really anything. Kyle looked at Rachel. Do you know who I am? He asked. Rachel looked back, confused. Who are you? Well, if you're not Kyle, I don't know who you are, Rachel smiled sweetly. Kyle made up his mind that he was probably Kyle. Well, he said, I'm Kyle. A long silence followed. Eventually, Rachel spoke again. And I'm Rachel. Hi, everyone, she waved. Hi, Rachel, said Kyle. So why are we here? Rachel was visibly worried. Ha ha, funny, she said. Weren't you planning on asking me any questions? I mean, I don't have any ideas, said Kyle. Kyle kept staring at Rachel.
Fucking imagine.
Someone coughed. Kyle looked around and noticed the crew. Who on earth are all of you? He asked. Nobody answered. Kyle got out of his chair and walked off frame, leaving Rachel alone with millions of viewers. Rachel smiled at the camera nervously. Well, she said, let me tell you some knock-knock jokes. Eventually, the producer ended the broadcast early due to technical issues. Kyle woke up in his bed the next day, remembering nothing about what had happened.
Interesting. Okay, we're gonna exit the bed. We're gonna
Kyle quickly
scavenge for
crouched down.
gossip.
Kyle firmly.
We're going to open the closet, choose
Kyle decided to take.
suit, back to room, sit at desk, check in desk,
Kyle
small
grabbed.
key. Back to room, hallway.
Kyle walked over.
Right. Okay, kitchen.
Kyle wanted to access the pantry. The pantry door lock creaked as if it hadn't moved for years, but eventually opened. Instead of an assortment of canned goods and grains, Kyle's pantry stored his massive amount of bottled lard.
We're gonna chug a bottle of lard.
Kyle voraciously grabbed the closest bottle, snapped the neck against the wall, and sucked out all of the fat within a minute.
You know what? Let's chug another bottle of lard.
Kyle wildly sucked down another bottle. He felt very sick.
Let's chug another bottle of lard.
Kyle's vomit and the lard were mixing in a way to make it hard to tell which was which.
Let's finish up
As Kyle finished the last bottle of lard, he felt a wave of accomplishment come over him.
Okay, I think return to hallway, leave apartment. Oh, alright.
Kyle, sitting. Good evening. Kyle responded. And I as well, Rachel, answered Kyle, extending his hand in greeting. A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on.
Okay, now we're gonna gossip about the neighbor.
Good evening, everybody, said Kyle. My neighbor is a bug vigilante. With nothing more to say on the matter, he fell silent. Rachel, also on camera, stared at her hands and wondered when she was going to be introduced. The producer started cutting to different camera angles to break the tension. Kyle continued to remain silent and stare forward blankly.
You're supposed to gossip with Rachel about the bug vigilante.
After several minutes, neighbor Gabby walked out onto set. Hi, everyone, she said, smiling hollowly. My name is Gabby, and I'm not a bug vigilante. False. Kyle looked at Gabby and then returned to staring forwards. Gabby began to reply, but was interrupted by a bug-shaped intercom on her belt. Bug girl, it squawked. A robbery's in progress on East 3rd. Report immediate. Gabby threw the intercom on the ground and crushed it under her foot. After a beat, she spoke tightly. Something has come up suddenly and I must go. Gabby left the set.
Why the fuck was Gabby near us to begin with?
Well, said Kyle, that's all the time we have for tonight. Thanks for joining us, Rachel. Kyle got up, shook Rachel's hand again, and walked past the cameras, leaving her alone. Not knowing what else to do, the producer ended the broadcast.
That's crazy, dog. Why the fuck would you do that?
In the coming days, fans of both Rachel and Kyle dubbed this show as a masterpiece of television. Stay Up Late with Kyle's online pages were updated to reflect this broadcast as the most popular ever. Kyle's producer later tried to have Rachel on the show again, but she was very, very, very busy.
Crazy. Alright, we're gonna try one more thing, and then I'm gonna eat some potatoes. Exit the bed. Open the closet. Choose an
Kyle
outfit.
decided.
Slick
Kyle
suit.
mira-
Back to room. Scavenge. Resources.
Kyle began to comb through the damp piles of filth and mold on his floor in search of helpful items. After finding and eating a few bits of crumbs and old cheese, Kyle found something much more important. Indeed, it was the corpse of Harry, a friend that had gone missing years ago while at Kyle's house. Kyle was glad to see him again, but was unsure of whether to interrupt such an important day with Harry business.
Let's deal with Harry.
Kyle hoisted Harry onto his shoulder and took him outside. Kyle began dragging Harry's body down the street, drawing many, many stairs. Kyle knew exactly where he needed to take Harry's corpse, on a lovely playdate, just the two of them.
What the fuck?
Kyle and Harry started at the arcade. Kyle used Harry's arms to operate the joysticks and push buttons. After 5 or 6 different games, the two friends had enough tickets for a single candy bar. They took their prize to the local park for eating. Kyle tried to feed some of the chocolate bar to Harry, but Harry seemed to not have an appetite. After eating, Kyle noticed a nearby playground. He dragged Harry over.
Dog.
Kyle tried to figure out a way to swing Harry onto the swing set, but, lacking the ability to grip, Harry kept falling out. Instead, Kyle started to lug Harry to the top of the slide and shove him down time and time again. Finally, Kyle took Harry to the movies to see as many popular films as their pocket change allowed. Kyle quickly found that he had no pocket change, so he searched through Harry's pockets until he found his wallet. Kyle bought 2 tickets to A Love Romance. After getting inside, Kyle left Harry to go find a restroom. By the time Kyle had finished using the restroom, he had forgotten that he brought Harry along. Kyle watched A Love Romance by himself. Harry's corpse sat on a bench in the atrium. While Kyle was in the movie, a beautiful thing happened.
What the hell is gonna happen to this poor corpse?
Harry's corpse, imbued with the power of friendship and love, was reanimated. Harry's old, rotten flesh gained color and life. His fingernails regrew. His missing eye came back. By the time the movie was over, Harry was able to greet Kyle with a large, friendly hug as his old self. Kyle was confused but delighted to have his long-lost friend meet him on his way out of the theater. The two made plans to get drinks together and parted ways for the day. Kyle returned home, forgetting about the interview with Rachel.
Crazy. Okay, I gotta go check on my potatoes now. Alright, I'm back. Oh.
Kyle decided to take some time to choose the perfect outfit, knowing how important appearance is.
I'm gonna do jeans and
Kyle decided on a fashion-forward, casual style. He could barely see out of the goggles. Kyle wrote down his first question. Kyle wrote down his second question. Kyle wrote down his third question. Kyle wrote down his last question. Kyle ripped his page of notes out of the notebook and got up from the desk.
Done that. Next to bedroom. Move to kitchen.
Kyle opened the fridge, intending to find something to eat.
Let's eat the fridge.
Kyle pointed his neck directly upwards and hoisted the fridge on top of his face. Somehow, miraculously, he wrapped his mouth around the device. He started to swallow. In one slow, horrible movement, the fridge slid down Kyle's throat. After many gurgles, pops, and snaps, Kyle felt relatively sure the fridge would not come back out.
I think we can go ahead and leave apartment.
Kyle approached his downstairs neighbor's door and knocked. A middle-aged woman named Gabby answered the door.
Tempting, but I think I'll just talk to her first.
"Good morning, neighbor," said Kyle cheerfully. Gabby looked at Kyle expectantly. "Gabby," asked Kyle, "tell me about yourself." Gabby stiffened. "Oh, you know," she said, putting on a fake smile. "I just sit around here. Yes, I don't get around much, never go out at night. I just stay here, right here." Gabby glared at Kyle. Convinced by Gabby's statement, Kyle bid her goodbye and returned to the street. Kyle hurried to the set. Sitting across, as Kyle... "Good evening, Kyle," Kyle responded. "And I as well, Rachel," answered Kyle. After a moment... "Good evening, everyone," said Kyle, looking at the camera. "Welcome back to Stay Up Late with Kyle." Kyle vomited all of the horrible things he had eaten earlier onto the floor. Rachel looked at Kyle, concerned, gave a couple coughs, and decided to play it cool and keep the show running. Kyle stopped, then vomited. "Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May, who needs no more introduction."
Become Rachel May.
"However," said Kyle, suddenly dropping his voice, "Rachel May is not sitting next to me. She is not new to this show. She did not walk in before me. In fact," said Kyle, "I am Rachel May." Rachel looked at Kyle, confused, and silently mouthed the words, "You are who?" Kyle stood up quickly and threw his arm high above him, pointing upwards. "I have never been Kyle," he proclaimed. "I have never been the host of the show Stay Up Late with Kyle." Kyle looked and pointed directly at the camera. "I am here for but one reason, to interview myself." Kyle sat down in his chair and went to produce the notes he had taken earlier.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Kyle read the first question on his list. "Are you a mother?" "Well," he said, brightening, "I'm glad you asked. Yeah. In fact," said Kyle, motioning to Rachel, "one of my children is sitting here with me today." Rachel looked incredibly confused. After a moment, Kyle spoke again. "I am your mother!" He stood up again. "Give me a big hug, daughter!" After a moment more, Rachel shrugged, stood up, and gave Kyle a hug. The interview continued, Kyle talking about his supposed raising of Rachel and their times together. Rachel engaged in the interview with exuberance, answering questions as best she could and enjoying every moment.
Well, at least she's enjoying it.
From this episode, Rachel's childhood and family became a debated topic in her fan base. When fans asked Rachel about the matter, she would giggle and make a joke about the interview. Scientists and fans began to dig deep, finding evidence both for and against the Kyle is Rachel's mother theory. But no matter how much anyone dug, nobody was able to come to a conclusion on the matter. Kyle had created a public mystery.
This is great. Okay, I think we're gonna reset again, and then wait, we can reset the interview. I'm gonna do that real quick.
Kyle responded. Kyle stretched his arms wide, tilted his neck upwards, and was interrupted by his producer telling him and Rachel that it was time to start the show.
Insist.
Kyle shoved his producer out of the way, spread his arms wide, and began to scream loudly. He began to rotate slowly, screaming throughout, lightly brushing his hands against the faces of Rachel and his producer. After several minutes, Kyle was finished. He slowly put his hands to his sides and smiled. "I'm ready," said Kyle. Rachel blinked at Kyle, shrugged, and walked over to her seat. A moment after seating, Goody? Kyle? Tonight, Kyle motioned to Rachel. Well, Kyle produced the notes he had taken earlier. Rachel, am I a mother? Kyle looked at her very seriously. Rachel was visibly unsure of how to respond. Well, Kyle, I think you might be a better source of answering that question than I am. But do you think I'm a mother? Asked Kyle, pushing further. Rachel paused for a second before answering. I think you inspire youth to pursue STEM fields, she answered. Kyle asked another question.
Mashed or blended?
A burning question from the fans, said Kyle. Beef, do you prefer it mashed or blended? Rachel answered promptly, mashed, and no more was said on that matter.
To be honest, I would also prefer beef mashed, because then it could be like a tartare type of situation. Blended would just turn it into a fucked up movie. So Rachel May is right.
Kyle asked another question. Do you ever smile? Spat Kyle. Like, seriously. Rachel stopped smiling. If you're gonna be on the show, you need to smile, okay? Said Kyle, not smiling. You're here to get views, and you'll get more views if you smile. Here, I'll show you how. Kyle turned to the camera and gave the audience a huge, teeth-clenched, bug-eyed grimace. Rachel nodded and obviously wanted to move on. Kyle asked another question.
Do you feel guilty?
Rachel, do you feel guilty? Asked Kyle, hitting her with a hard question. Rachel raised her eyebrows. About what specifically, Kyle? Things. Things in general. Life. Rachel did not answer immediately. I think, she said, that everyone has things they regret, but those things aren't always what others would expect.
Ooh.
Rachel folded her hands in her lap and didn't have anything more to say. After reading his final question, Kyle looked up from his paper. Well, Rachel, he said, I think that's all I was planning on asking you. If that's the case, Kyle, may I ask you something in return? Asked Rachel, smiling one more time. Why exactly did you decide to wear swimming goggles today? Before Kyle could answer, the camera shut down. The broadcast was over. Kyle returned home knowing the interview had gone well. But as he lay in bed and drifted to sleep, he felt that perhaps something was still missing?
Oh god. I'm gonna go interview Techno Jim this time around.
Kyle hurried to the set.
Wait, hold on. Restart.
Kyle decided to take some time to chew.
Gum
Kyle chose the
pasty.
pasties made out of mashed skunk flesh. Getting the slimy garments to stay proved difficult, so Kyle opted to stick them to his body with hot glue.
Ugh. Okay. Leave apartment. Visit tech store. Steal Techno
Quickly,
Jim.
finding that Kyle
Okay. Let's talk to the neighbor.
a middle-aged woman named Gabby answered the door. Good morning, neighbor, said Kyle cheerfully. Gabby looked at
Ask
Kyle
her about
expectantly.
Rachel.
Gabby, Kyle asked, what are your true thoughts about Rachel May? Oh, Rachel? Gabby said. She's a wonderful woman. Her generous acts have inspired more good work than bad. Gabby trailed off, not meeting Kyle's eyes. After several uncomfortable minutes of silence, Kyle turned around and... Kyle opened the fridge. Kyle constructed a breakfast of poached eggs and toast, along with a small fruit cup and grilled sausage.
Let's smash it.
Kyle smashed his breakfast.
Okay, return to hallway. Check lock
Kyle
door. Back to hallway.
Kyle sitting across as Kyle... Good evening, Kyle, she said, looking him in the eyes. I've been looking forward to being here.
Okay, we're gonna interview Techno Jim instead.
Kyle roughly shoved Rachel out of her seat and placed Techno Jim in her stead.
Kyle, you don't need to be an asshole about it. Just like fucking...
Hello, Techno Jim, said Kyle. I'm going to interview you today. Kyle grasped Techno Jim's hand and tried to shake it, but instead tore it off the cardboard frame. Kyle's producer, sensing viral media, pulled the bewildered Rachel out of frame and motioned the crew to go live. Cameramen moved, lights flashed, and suddenly the studio was on air. Hi, I'm Kyle, said Kyle, and tonight I'm going to interview a very special guest. He pointed at Techno Jim using the dismembered arm. Techno Jim started to smoke from the heat of the lights. Would you like to introduce yourself? Asked. Knowing Jim would probably not speak, Kyle took it upon himself to be his voice as well. Hi, Kyle, he said, raising the pitch of his voice. My name is Rachel May, and I'm a very special guest. Rachel's expression of confusion turned to shock. Well, Rachel, you look way too thin and absolutely terrible, and you should feel ugly. Kyle gave Jim a meaningful stare. Wow, Kyle, he said. I sure wish I could look like you. Techno Jim burst into flames. Instantaneously, the sprinkler system initiated. Curtains of water poured down from the rafters.
Oh, it's raining on us.
Within seconds, the production equipment was doused in water. The set was soon aburst with electrical fires. Kyle's crew abandoned their posts as cameramen and sound mixers to try to put the fires out. As the crew scrambled around, the cameras continued to run. Kyle sat, motionless, staring forward. Eventually, the fires were all put out. Kyle's producer shut off the broadcast, leaving Kyle's vacant stare as the final frame. Kyle's ratings skyrocketed. Techno Jim became a staple on the show, often ending up destroyed by the end of each episode. Although Rachel did not come back on the show, her cardboard portrayal did. Rachel was very popular.
Interesting. Sit the bed. We're gonna
Kyle
scavenge
quickly crouched.
for bugs.
Kyle started to pick between the fuzz of his bedroom carpet, hoping to catch a stray beetle or two. Soon, he had a small handful of various insects, dead and alive.
Save for later
Kyle
use.
stashed the wriggling mass for later use.
Ball of bugs. Okay. Let's leave apartment. Visit downstairs
Kyle approached his
neighbor.
downstairs neighbor's door and knocked. A middle-aged woman named Gabby answered the door. Good morning, neighbor, said Kyle cheerfully. Gabby looked at Kyle expectantly.
Let's ask Gabby
Gabby.
about Gabby.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead. Okay, visit tech store.
Kyle asked the store attendant whether or not they offered any free samples to important customers. The attendant gave Kyle a confused and slightly vacant look. Kyle began to beg for a free sample. Wanting Kyle to leave, the attendant grabbed a decrepit phone meant for spare parts and held it out.
Grab with teeth.
Kyle firmly clamped his mouth around the outstretched phone, creating several punctures in the screen. Kyle grunted and yanked with his head until the attendant let go of the phone. The phone is now Kyle's to use forever.
Visit tech store again. Give review of free sample.
This phone, said Kyle, is several years old and has exposed wires coming out of the back. Kyle continued. Also, the screen has had issues ever since I used it to hammer nails into the wall. Furthermore, when I submerge it in water, I get severely shocked until it runs out of battery. The attendant looked at Kyle, pursed his lips, and said nothing. Feeling he had made his argument, Kyle decided to leave. Kyle hurried to the set. Sitting across as Kyle, Rachel's smile quickly turned to shock as she realized Kyle had not put on clothes that day.
Oh.
Kyle waved and smiled broadly. Rachel uncomfortably averted her eyes. Kyle started making his rounds around the room, greeting each crew member, none of whom looked at him directly. As it became apparent that Kyle had no intention of leaving, Rachel made some excuses and exited the set. One by one, the crew followed suit. Kyle was left all alone.
See. Alright. I think I'm done with this video. Bye, guys.